First impressions matter, like meeting your girlfriend's dad, or going to an interview, or finally playing a game that you've been hyped for a decade. When you pick up a new game, at least for me, the excitement is like through the roof. I mean, you're ready to dive into a whole new experience, get lost in the story or in the gameplay, and just have a good time with something you hope is your next addiction. But what happens when the opening hours feel like a chore or just a complete disaster? Like what happens when it feels like nothing you thought it would be? Or if the game completely breaks on you and you're forced out of immersion because you have to restart the story so maybe you can get past the broken bits. That first taste, man, can linger, okay? And no matter how much a game improves over time, for me at least, it's hard to forget how bad it was when you first played it. I have felt this way for a long time when it comes to games that leave a bad taste in my mouth. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody talk about it on the internet. It's hard for me to enjoy a game that has a rocky start, specifically after the game is improved over months or years or like a decade. I want us to talk about why that happens and why it's such a big deal for people who play games. And if you have like any input on this, or if you've experienced this, or if you experience the opposite, like you want to keep playing if the game sucks, like let me know in the comments because I really like seeing different perspectives you guys have. All right, take Starfield for example. Oh boy. Here Horse Armor goes again, talking about Starfield. Bethesda fans were hyped for years, dude, expecting it to be the next evolution of their classic formula. But for a lot of people, myself included, those early hours did not deliver. The intro felt slow, the world felt like overwhelming in all the wrong ways, and there were so many systems that just didn't click right away. For me, I just had an uneasy feeling, like, it felt familiar as a Bethesda game, but I also felt this kind of impending doom. I mean, I literally can't explain the feeling that the first few hours of Starfield gave me. It's like the intro of Starfield was forcing hopefulness out of me. Like I just kept giving hope to this game. I was like, it gets better, it gets better, it gets better. For other people, including myself, it just didn't, right out of the gate, it didn't feel like the grand, awe-inspiring journey I was expecting. It was just fine, They're just fine. And just fine isn't what you want after years of excitement. Even if Starfield got better after a few hours, like that rocky start made it hard to go back and give it a second chance. But what sucks about the Starfield example is that it really doesn't feel like it gets better after the few hours, The more you play, the more you're introduced to just, this is how the game is. And I won't go into detail about how the game is. Dude, I've done that so many times on other videos. So if you want to check those out, I'll put some on the screen somewhere. If you enjoy Starfield slander, you will love these, I promise. But back to my point, if 5 years down the road, Starfield had like a major come up and felt more like a real, engaging, and fun world to play in, I probably wouldn't have that much interest in it, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying that just to be cynical. I just think that it's a psychological thing, and I'm sure that many other players also have it. And we can't talk about rough starts without bringing up Cyberpunk 2077. Oh my god, dude, that launch was infamous. Bugs everywhere, crashes, performance issues. It was a freaking mess. A hot pile of garbage that was set on fire, and then it seemed like someone pissed on the fire to try to make it go out, but for some reason their piss was flammable, so it just became a big Burning Man bonfire of hot garbage and piss. Piss garbage, dude. The world of Night City was supposed to be this immersive next-gen experience, but for most people, it was just frustrating. Underneath all that piss garbage was a really good game. It kind of felt like it was just hiding, or like the devs didn't mine enough for it, like that one meme I'm sure you've all seen. The thing is that Cyberpunk today is a much better game. Much better game. CD Projekt Red has patched it to the point where it's arguably one of the best experiences they've ever come out with. But for a lot of players, man, that initial launch left such a bad taste that they just kind of moved on, No matter how much they fix it, the memory of what it was like at launch, it's hard to shake. I can attest to this because right now I do think it's a good game. I think Cyberpunk is a great game, but every time I try to play it again, I'm just reminded of how it was. I know that sounds insane. I know it does, but I cannot shake that feeling. It almost feels like a chore, okay, well, let me get through all the gameplay I've done before just so I can experience the newness that everyone's been talking about. It just feels like I have to slog through stuff I've already experienced before so I can experience the new stuff. The problem, I think, is that a bad start makes it harder to trust the game or even in the developer. You start wondering if the game is worth your time or if you're just wasting hours waiting for it to get good. You remember No Man's Sky? When it first came out, it was a skeleton of what was promised. No multiplayer, awful gameplay, nothing like the trailers. The planets were just Skittles, you know what I mean? It's a fantastic game now. I mean, it's almost unrecognizable compared to launch, but some people will never know that because they just checked out early. They got burned once and they don't want to risk it again. Like, that's reasonable. Again, I think that No Man's Sky is a great game now, but I don't think I could see myself playing it for another 200 hours because I do have bad memories. I was anticipating that game for like 5 years straight and obsessed over it. Yes, I know that's not healthy at all, but I was a teenager. And when it came out, I had to like force myself to try and enjoy it, and it got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I mean, it felt like my mom had been making the best dinner for 5 years straight, stirring the pot for 5 freaking years, and when I finally ate it, it tasted like a nasty patty from SpongeBob. I felt like I was smiling through the pain and I just had to spit it out. But don't get me wrong, like, I mean, I've still tried to play like some of the new No Man's Sky updates, and they're actually really fun. So yeah, I mean, definitely try it. And I feel like my next point, and like, I guess the whole theme of this video is that when the start of a game feels bland or uninspired, it makes you less likely to stick around for the good stuff later, if there even is good stuff. It's insane how rough starts can color an entire experience. Let's say a game is amazing after the first 10 hours. That's great. That's awesome. But who, dude? Point me to who has the patience to slog through mediocrity to get there. I mean, in today's world, there's hundreds of games, thousands of games fighting for your attention. Most players won't give a game that long to prove itself. Like, they'll just move on to something else. I'm like that. I'm probably the #1 refunder on Steam because I'll try something, and if I do not like it after 2 hours, I refund it. I recently reviewed Empire of the Ants and thought it was a terrible game after playing for 2 hours. It's very beautiful, but the gameplay sucks, man. I had people commenting on that video things like, "You didn't give it a chance," or "Bro played for 2 hours and made up his mind." Yeah, I did. I did make up my mind. I can't stand this narrative that you have to play a game for 10 to 20 hours before it gets interesting. I think that if you play a game for 2 hours and you aren't enjoying yourself, you are completely right in saying that you don't like the game. It's like food. Kind of. If I try oysters and I don't like them, what makes you think I'm gonna enjoy them the more I keep eating them? I'm probably gonna vomit. That's just not how it works in my opinion. I mean, games are a little bit different though, because the first 2 to 5 hours of a game is where it sets the tone for how future gameplay is probably gonna feel. And like, you know, if I don't like the first 2 hours, I'm not gonna subject myself to waste another 2 hours on something I didn't enjoy the first 2 hours. Anyway, sorry, I just had to rant about that. Of course though, not all bad starts are created equally. Some games can recover like almost immediately if they do something really cool to win you back. Like the first game that comes to my mind is The Witcher 3. In The Witcher 3 and the opening in White Orchard, it's a little slow, you know, but once you get past that, the world opens up and you realize why the game is so special. Like that intro sequence doesn't even take that long though because you're distracted by how beautiful the game is, and it still holds up in my opinion. But not every game pulls that off. If the first couple of hours feel like a drag, there's no guarantee players are going to stick around long enough to see the payoff. Some people have more patience than others though, and I wish I had that, but the truth is that there's so many different games now that you can just do a refund. Try something new. What's frustrating though is that the developers sometimes seem to ignore how important the first few hours are. They spend years crafting these massive, intricate worlds, but if the introduction doesn't hook you, I mean, none of that matters. You know, it's like if you put really good content past the 10-hour mark in your game, that's a bummer because, I mean, not everybody, but I mean, there's going to be people who just don't see that. You know, you need to take a slice of that and put it in the beginning of your game. You need to hook somebody. You know, it's like some developers, they expect players to commit hours of their lives just to get to the good part. That's just not realistic for most people, you know? There's a reason why a YouTube video that gets 1 million views has 1 million views. It's because whoever made that video hooked you in the first 30 seconds of the video so you'd want to keep watching. It's the same thing with movies and TV. You know, they give you a reason in the first episode to want to keep watching. Games are no different. If I don't have a good enough reason to keep playing past that 2 to 5 hour mark, I'm just not. If I pull up a YouTube video and the title and thumbnail are really compelling, but the first minute is just a product product sponsor, I'm either gonna find something different to watch or skip through the video. Rough starts also create a ripple effect. If a game gets bad press at launch or word of mouth is negative, dude, it can take years for that perspective to change, if it ever does. Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky are great now. You know, they have a huge player base, but they'll always carry that stigma of their launches. That's a hard thing for a game to overcome, like no matter how good it eventually becomes. But Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky have made it past that rocky start at that point. Yes, they'll always be remembered for that, but I feel like them evolving in the way that they did greatly outweighs the negative launch of those two games. But here's the thing, right? People want to love games. The majority of people don't want to hate a game. When a game like Starfield or Cyberpunk doesn't land right away, it's not just disappointing, it's personal. It feels really personal. You've invested your time, your money, and your excitement, and when a game doesn't deliver right out of the gate, it's like getting stood up on a date, you know? You could try to patch things up, but it's hard to forget about that initial letdown. If you meet somebody on Tinder or whatever, and you go on a first date to Outback, and then they shit in the booth while making eye contact with you, you probably just leave. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Unless you enjoy someone shitting themselves on a first date, I mean, which that's fine, I'm not judging. But that memory of them releasing excrement while you're trying to eat, it's gonna leave a permanent scar on your brain, and you're probably not gonna want to go out with that person again. Bit of a weird segue, but the lesson here, both for players and developers, is that first impressions really, really matter. If a game can't grab you in the first couple of hours, it is going to be an uphill battle to win you back, man. Developers need to focus on making those opening moments as polished, engaging as possible, because in the end, that's what sticks with people. You know, when you ask someone about their favorite games, odds are when they think about their favorite game, they're thinking about the initial feeling that it gave them. You know, when someone asks me about a Bethesda game, I tend to think about the first 5 hours of the game, like the step out moment, because that's what sets the player up for whatever comes next. There's a reason that everyone remembers the first episode of their favorite TV show better than any other episode. I mean, I could literally tell you what happens in every frame of Breaking Bad episode 1 because it had me absolutely hooked. And for us as players, maybe the lesson is to be a little bit more cautious with our expectations. I mean, it's really easy to get swept up in the hype, but not every game is going to live up to it, at least not right away. Maybe we need to start holding developers accountable for delivering a solid experience from day one instead of accepting the, oh, we'll fix it later kind of approach. I feel like a lot of developers are really leaning towards that we'll fix it later kind of approach with games nowadays. It's really annoying. Like, just, you don't go to Burger King and they leave out a bun, you know, like you just get the bottom bun. No, you get the whole freaking burger because that's what you paid for. And I want to hit that first point again because it's really important. We, the consumers, need to be cautious with our expectations. I think it is completely reasonable and human to be excited about something you have an interest in, but there's healthy ways to do that. I think that managing your hype and not letting speculation get the wrong grasp on you is important and helping you to enjoy a game. So yeah, rough starts can leave a bad taste, but they don't have to be the end of the story. You know, some games bounce back, some don't. It's really up to us to decide if we're willing to give them a second chance or if we'd rather move on to something else that gets it right the first time. I really hope that this resonated with some of you because it's something I've experienced in the past, and I love relating to people and hearing them say like, wow, like I felt that same way before. But yeah, also real quick, I'm glad you guys enjoyed my first like game review that I did on Empire of the Ants. I had a lot of fun making it, and also made me feel good that I'm not trapped in the Bethesda side of YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. I love reading all the comments and what you guys think, even if they're negative. Please subscribe and share the video. Sharing it helps out a ton, and I'll see you guys soon. See ya.